Slice the Podcast is brought to you by VegaLend, a different way to get a mortgage. VegaLend provides insight and advice so you can make informed decisions for the future of your family. Welcome to Slice, Property Made Possible. We're a platform on a mission to reduce barriers to home ownership. This podcast is a safe space for our community to learn together and build the confidence required to start on their property journey. When you're ready to start, head along to slicetobuy.com and sign up for your free dashboard.
So today we want to welcome Karin from Bailey's, Central Auckland. She's a real estate agent there. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your own experience, Karin?
Yeah, so thank you for having me today. Really excited about Slice. I started in real estate recruitment. In the past 3-4 years, I've been recruiting salespeople. And so I was learning a lot about the business. And I was hearing a lot of information and receiving information from different agents. Some of them are really top writers and the ones that struggle. And I just gathered so much information. I was always passionate about real estate, coming from my background in my family. So my father was in construction and I studied architecture. And I thought that someday I will go back to it. I started with it and it's, the world is round. So with the real estate recruitment, it opened my eyes again to the industry. I was really, really excited about it. And every meeting I was trying to grasp, what is happening and what can I learn from it. So from managers to the general managers to the salespeople. And about a couple of years ago, I was approached by very good friends of mine. They really wanted me to help them with their renovation business, and that's where it all began. Yeah. So I started doing a lot of social media. I love writing, so I started writing blurbs, and then they've asked me to help them sell their properties. So I went a bit back to front and I started doing private sales, and then got into that point where I felt I needed to have a certificate. I felt maybe this is the next step. So I got into traditional real estate.
Right.
Yeah,
amazing.
And into selling off the plans. I was doing that for about a year and recently joined Bailey's Real Estate.
Oh.
Yeah.
And in terms of when we met, which was through Instagram of all places.
Well, this is where you meet right now, right?
It is. It's the way of the world now. Yeah. So we had a really engaging conversation though, which is why I was super excited to get you on an episode. But just hearing more kind of about your personal experience with property as well, and if you're comfortable sharing a little bit about, what that's been like for you and what you hope it will be like kind of going forward.
So I believe, we try to do our best when we anything we do, we try to learn from our experience, and I've had a lot of experience. I started off when I was young, about 28, inheriting some property and money back in Israel, where I'm from, and I owned my apartment at a young age, and I thought I knew what I was doing, and then I sold one, and then I lost some money, and then I came to New Zealand and wanted to establish myself here with my family, and part of it was buy property. I didn't really, I think, back then understand the New Zealand market and property here, and brought the assets here, the money, and bought land on Waiheke Island. That was the most romantic dream, but it didn't really work the way we wanted it to work. So we sold that, bought a house, for the family. It's what you do. And from that onwards, there were a lot of obstacles along the way. And then I got into a relationship with a lot of people in the industry, and that's where the knowledge started building up. Yeah. So today, my view on real estate and how to buy property and how to get those emotions out and how to look at it as an investment and a long-term investment has changed dramatically from when I came here about 12 years ago.
So it sort of seems like you're alluding to it's a more transactional approach now.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, it's a commodity. It's business. Yes. How do you relate to a home? You've got a lot of emotions that come with it. But if you look at it as an investment and something for your long term, for your retirement, we were talking about retirement, New Zealand is big on this. So my view has completely changed, yeah.
And in your kind of personal approach and what you're hoping to achieve with property going forwards, like you were speaking about potentially,
buying
again.
Yeah. So, with separation, with kind of losing, I guess, assets and starting all over again as a solo parent, it's tough. It's a tough place to be. So you've got to start again. And where do you start? So learning is a big part of it. So not listening, to the noises around you, and because everybody's buying at the moment, or it doesn't matter when, then you have to get into that stressful mode. Yes. So being relaxed about it, doing your due diligence, understanding where is it that you want to be in a few years. And again, it goes back to your mindset,
your
and working
goals,
on your goals. Everyone is an individual.
Yeah.
We don't have to do what everybody else is doing. We don't have to buy where everybody is buying. So I guess that for me, it's really about reassessing.
Yeah.
Time, patience is key, and getting knowledge. Starting building equity again.
Yeah.
What you do when we connected was amazing, because you come with your story, I come with my story. Reverse.
So we kind of roles reverse, obviously.
Totally.
In an earlier episode, I spoke about kind of my mum being a solo mum, and that being a formative experience for me watching on. And now, of course, you becoming a solo mum and going on that journey. I think it can be really empowering, but it's also really challenging,
Very challenging.
So thank you for sharing that as well.
Yeah, and I guess that's where, you come in with your idea about buying property is, can you buy together? What are moms going to do in this market? What can we do? What are our options? There is traditional purchasing and there's traditional, processes in place, but there's also, the world has changed a lot as well, and the way we look at purchasing property, and maybe joining hands is the way to go for a lot of, especially females, women, just statistically, that a lot of women, when they get out of separation and divorces, they are left to start everything from scratch. And in this maybe market, or in a different market, it's just joining hands, working together with the same goals in place. That's how it can work.
And there's another episode as well where we talk to kind of the Relationship Property Act and kind of how, as women or men actually, you can kind of use those agreements to help with separations and help keep things fair. And I'm assuming you kind of didn't have that agreement in place.
No, so it was a bit chaotic, but I guess for me it was more about my mental health and just moving forward. I think one of my biggest assets as me is the fact that I can dwell on things for a little bit, but then I quickly get up and move on, because if you can't get stuck in things, you've got to move forward, and that is the key in life. Everybody goes through challenges. Even if you have a lot of money, you still have challenges. And so for me, it was about getting that family home sold, getting out of the house, starting life again. I like to put things in a bit of boxes. Now I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do that, and get that pressure off my back, and actually look at family, kids, myself, career, start again as something more important, valuable for me to keep myself afloat, so I can then move to the next step. And there is no time limit. People are so fixated on time frames. And I think you've got to come with a mindset of infinite time, infinite partners, infinite opportunities, infinite. Everything. The world's your oyster. There's no time limit in terms of age. I think you posted about the oldest person that got into his first home at what, 80? 80 years old or something.
Or something.
I mean, look
Never
at that as an example to the fact that it's infinite. You cannot put time frames. If you start putting time frames and limitations, this is where the mindset struggles.
And that's where the noise, you have to
Yeah.
block that out, because yes, there are opportunities,
Totally.
but you just need to focus on your
Yeah.
circumstances.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
going back, it's so interesting to hear your journey, by the way.
Yeah.
But going back to, your role as a real estate
Yeah.
agent, so agents are really responsible for supporting with offers when it comes to
Yep.
putting, sales and
Offers
purchase
through.
agreements,
Yes.
for example.
Yep.
Can you give us some tips about things to consider when putting in an offer, putting through an offer on a house?
Absolutely. So it's a big responsibility. We're like the middlemen, in some cases, especially if you work for a buyer, for example. But if you work I'm a listing agent, so the goal is to list and sell your property. And when buyers come in to your open home and they're really interested and want to put an offer through, everybody gets excited. But what people need to remember is what their goal is. And also remember there's another person on the other side. So that's the seller.
Yeah,
So there's a lot of psychology here.
What sort of things do you
Yeah.
see that are an option to make that sale and purchase? Or we'll go into the detail around what a
course.
sale and purchase agreement is, but some of the conditions that you can put there to sweeten the deal, I guess, for the seller.
I think you've got to come with an open mind. You've got to do your research. So research is really important. Get that CMA done properly. Get all the information about the current market analysis. Understand the market around that property. Understand what is sold around that property. So you're not coming with demands that are just unrealistic.
Right. Maybe give some examples.
Only think about what your goal is. If the house is.
What's an unrealistic demand? Like 100K short of the.
So you always want to keep room for negotiation, but there is a saying, and I don't think it's for nothing, it's put your best foot forward. If you really like the property, try to get, not too emotionally attached, especially now there's so much going on with auctions, so you come in with all that anticipation and you go, I'm going to get a house today, and expectations, and you're like, I'm not getting it.
Yeah.
So realistic, it means also really understanding that there's another person on the other side. Try not to go head to head. It's not about winning. It's got to be a win-win.
Yeah.
I believe in being as honest as you can.
Yes.
Have integrity around it,
As you say that and you talk about, it not being a win-win and it being, you're actually making it feel like a more human transaction, which is interesting, given like sometimes you need to remove the emotion.
You've got to be sometimes a little bit more pushy.
Yeah.
But
when you're
we're
negotiating.
talking about a people's business. When someone, when I used to do the recruitment, it's not about selling houses. You are dealing with human beings. You're dealing with psychology. You're dealing with emotions. You're dealing with people. And so if you understand that, and you have your end goal, but
you can
can't
remove
just
maybe
fixate
a bit of
on
your
end goal.
emotion, but you might want to understand what their emotion
exactly.
might look
There's
like.
another person sitting in front of you. That is called this is why there is negotiation.
Which makes me think, I only just heard from DJ just before this episode that she wrote a letter.
We talked about that.
Another point, like, when it comes to an offer, sometimes you can write a personal letter, which is something I had
your
experience
circumstances.
with. Exactly. It's like, what do you think about that? Like, do you have any advice for people when it comes to you?
I think it's I haven't heard that a lot, I have to say, but I like it. I think again it goes back to being human. Some people only look at the end result. They don't look at the journey. They don't understand the journey of negotiation and the whole sell and purchase agreement. It's different in an auction room, and in an auction room you also come very prepared. You already spoke to your solicitor in depth, and you've done all your due diligence, so you're ready.
Yeah, because when you go to auction
and you really
have
want
to buy that. There's no more opportunity to look into the property.
It's done. If it wasn't done in the auction room or even outside the auction room, that is it. You missed the boat. And you don't want to miss the boat. And I think also talking about the sellers, sometimes they come with all these unrealistic expectations and making it really hard to negotiate. And at the end of the day, you've got to check the market. You've got to know what is going on really in this market, so you're
And
not
in that
unrealistic.
way, auctions can actually be really good because
Yeah,
you can
totally.
say, well, this is what the market was willing to pay for it on the day. So you can leave there thinking, well, yeah,
Totally.
I've paid just above that price, and that's how I won
And
the
that's
home.
how you come to auctions. You come to auctions with about kind of 3-4 things in your mind. One is, what is the market value really? Because you know, you can do a CMA and you can know what's going on around that property, what's sold and what's gonna,
And like
what
you
is
can
for
even
sale.
check the valuations and things, but they're notoriously
They
actually
are.
a bit hard to follow.
Yeah, and then you know, you want to think about what is that top dollar you're happy to pay.
What's your
If you
max?
know that, what's your maximum?
Yeah.
Where are you really going to go? Where are you going to push yourself? And you'll be surprised, because we get surprised sometimes. People say, I haven't got. And then suddenly they pull out $200,000 more. And you go, where'd you come up with this?
Yeah.
Right?
Feels very
So
emotional.
you got to be, I think it's really hard, because I would love people to be more honest. I would love that honesty on the table and go, this is what I can really play with. But you see, this is where the emotion comes into place. And this is where someone that really wants something, like,
And there's
you know,
a lot of
will
trust
make,
as well around, you know, I want to get a good deal, or you want to feel like still it's a good investment.
You want to have movement. I believe that in any negotiation or in an auction room, you want to have movement, you know, not stillness,
And
not people to freeze, you know.
yeah. In terms of, I guess, the sale and purchase agreement, so just focusing on, I guess, like putting an offer in and not going to auction first. What are some of the conditions that you've seen that, you know, have either are not liked by the seller maybe?
Yeah.
Or like, I know we've got sort of things such as, you know, subject to finance, or subject to a building report, or subject to a limb report, which you order from the council. Like those are the three kind of main ones.
Yeah, they're quite common. And it really depends what you're buying as well. You know, if it's a new build, if it's not a new build, you know, off the plans. Also, when do you want to settle? You know, settlement is a big deal. You know, settlement date. You saw it a lot during COVID.
Yeah.
It changed the dynamic of that sell and purchase agreement, you know, because nobody knew what's going on.
Yeah,
Can I really move at that date, you know, on that date, or can I not? So settlement date is important, and some people are very flexible. So again, it goes back to what I said earlier, is just be flexible with your mind, you know, don't just fixate on this is what I want, and the other party, this is what I want. Try to go in the middle, you know, and so you can put things like, limb report, builder's report. It's really important, especially older houses, you know, that you don't know what was going on before. And, you know, people used to put just under due diligence, like a general due diligence. And real estate agents don't like it, because it is so broad,
Bit of a red flag,
and it's a big red flag, because it allows people to really
get out
of any reason.
way.
But if you believe in, you know, in kind of destiny, and what is meant to be yours is going to be yours, then you don't want to hold anyone
Such a good attitude to have.
throat that they have to buy something if it doesn't work well for them.
Yeah, and I think in
know?
this market now as well, it has slowed. There's a lot more, you know, buyer's power. When I bought, that wasn't near the same. But now you can actually put those conditions down quite easily, take your time to do that due diligence. And really, you can kind of tick whatever you want and say, you know, it is going to be subject to finance, which, by the way, normally that's not just whether or not you get finance, it's also whether or not you're happy with the rate. So it's quite broad. Those kind of being able to check those off and saying, well, it's subject to this, it actually does provide the buyer with a lot of power. The other thing that you made me think of as you're talking through that and saying, you know, be flexible, be open, I ended up actually negotiating on my contract with my house in Raglan for them to, I'm like, so poor, and it's such a big purchase and it's your first purchase, but I was like, I'm going to need you to leave the washing machine in the dryer. So like down to the line, but I just was like, I just like actually don't want to have to go and pay a few $100s.
Good thinking.
And when I got in there, because they had it set up as a batch, like each of those were worth $1,000 each. So I also really knocked down like the the offering price because Raglan was nowhere near as competitive
Yeah.
as Auckland, and I'd moved my money from the Auckland market to the Raglan market. But
Sure.
things like that, or looking for, other
Yep.
ways that you can, they probably don't need, because I knew they owned another house, they probably don't need 2 sets of that anyway. So
That goes back to goals, to what they want to get out of it as well, because you got to think about the other person on the other side. Do they want to move on? What is their purpose in selling? So it always goes back in every business transaction to the why.
And ask
Why are you
agent.
purchasing? Why are they selling? What is the motivation behind it? And when you know it, you've got a lot more power.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I
Because you
want to
want to
actually,
understand that.
that leads
Yeah.
really well into
Yeah.
one of my next questions. So I didn't go to auction personally, but
Yeah.
Amy, you did.
Yes.
Like, tell us a little bit about your experience with that, because that's where the emotion
nerve-wracking,
comes, right?
right?
Yeah, so nerve-wracking. And yeah, I mean, I went to auctions in Auckland first when we were in like peak market, and honestly, I left like in tears nearabouts each time. It was so demoralizing, just being like, this house is worth that, like 800k, and then it's like 1.7, and you're like, what? That's a cardboard box. Like, it was a real joke back then. So at least things are kind of improving now.
Absolutely.
But that was a daunting kind of process to get used to, and it was psychological.
And a lot of money that you pour in, because you've got to do all the due diligence when you're going to auction.
Yeah, so you have to do all of that,
Yeah.
you've got no opportunity to add conditions once you bid at auction. So I guess that's the challenge. You go and spend $500 or whatever on a building report for 3 homes that you lose the auctions to. So that's
a lot
a
of
really
money
demoralizing
out of
process.
pocket.
But for me, where we ended up getting to, and I was successful at auction, was the second time purchasing with my partner. And I mean, you probably get from these podcasts, I'm quite an extrovert, so he is probably more introverted than me. So I actually decided to bid, and he wanted me to bid on our behalf. So that was interesting, and I'm quite confident. So I went in and I was like, I'm just going to be real, like guns blazing, and just take this home. This is a house. And we were successful. We probably overpaid for it though. But it's all in
It's a good point though, what you're saying right now. And it goes back to what we were saying, is
we
that
did have a number, and I still
you had a
pushed
number,
past
right?
it.
So you knew that you can overcap.
So no one's
Absolutely.
perfect in that journey. And when
Yeah.
you get in the room, and we were standing next to each other, and we're like, should we just keep going? We'll just keep going. Like, it gets pretty exciting, and you just want to leave with the house. And also there were different, again, it does come back to circumstances though. I was stepping out to work on this business, which meant that I wasn't going to receive lending once I did that. So
there was time frame. It's a time
there was
frame.
a time frame for me to make that purchase if I was going to go in with my partner. So you have to take into account all of those things and think, oh well, it was the right price for us at that time based on our circumstances.
I have to admit that you've touched a really important point. It's people talk about regret and what did we do, and we could have done better, and we could have chosen better. But you've got to look at decision making, that it's right for a specific point in time.
Yes.
And for you wanted to get that task done, to tick the box, to get the house, so you can move on again. It's about moving forward, not getting stuck on the journey. And you can go back to doing what you love, right? So you knew you've got that time frame, and that goes into that whole psychology of who's sitting in that room in the auction. What are the reasons for bidding and motivation? Yeah.
And for me, you're right, it was time bound. And I sort of said that to my partner, if we're doing this together, I'm not staying in this job for like an undefined period of time. I am moving out into my business.
Yes.
So we do have this period to buy in if we're going together. So and then you can leave feeling confident, because you're like, it was what it was, but it was very much based on my values, my personal circumstances and decisions. So I think that's really key. But I do really agree with what you said around like setting a limit and trying to stick to it, because I think you feel better if you do that. But ultimately, if you're holding for the long term, I don't even really care what you pay for it, because
that takes you to a whole other discussion, because a lot of people who I meet in the industry, buyers or sellers, they look short term. Oh my God, I'm so stressed about the interest rates. I said, these things change dramatically. They go up and down, the cycles. What is the reason for you to buy, and are you going to hold? So you're going to hold you know, that's a whole different outlook on your purchase. And if someone is selling, is what is your motivation again? And where you're heading moving forward? Are you going to buy another house in the same market? It's apples to apples. It doesn't matter.
Right
you
now,
know?
it wouldn't be a good time to sell your house
Yes.
and then not buy back in because you'll realize the loss. But if you sell and buy again in the same market, it doesn't make a difference.
No, it doesn't make a difference.
So these are some of the things that you need to consider. And again, buying in, you might buy now and get today's interest rate. If you leave it 6 months, you might get a higher interest rate, but you might get a lower price. So all of these things kind of, they just shift and move, and you just have to take that 10-year period. At that 10-year period, it outperforms.
Yeah, people look at the 5-year, you know, mark as well with the new builds and the whole new. Who knows what's going to happen with elections? You know, who knows what is going to happen with this world, right? So,
geopolitical climate.
I think.
Should we turn this into a politics podcast?
One of the biggest thing, and I've started some coaching, and I love it, is just thinking healthily about the future, and not trying to put barriers on the way, right? So if you think positively and understand that you cannot predict anything really, there are cycles. Don't be a fortune teller. Just look at what your goals are now in the next 5 to 10 years, which is anyway a good thing to do with anything you do in your life. Same as property, same as your career, same as your family goals, whatever it is, and work with it. You know?
Yeah, just make it work for you and your circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely.
But also know that history is kind of the best predictor of future.
Repeats itself, right?
And we know that over a 10-year period,
it
outperforms inflation. So if you can buy and you can hold, it's in property, and and especially in periods of high inflation like right now, buying and holding is the best strategy.
It's fantastic. You know, as an agent, I'm helping a few buyers at the moment as well, and there's so many good opportunities out there. It's amazing.
Yeah, what are you sort of seeing in market?
We started, let's say, a few months ago. People were still really hesitating. Now we're reaching Christmas. Christmas period, the holidays is a really good time to have a look and observe the market and the emotions and what's happening. People like to leave things to the last minute. And then, oh my God, I've got to buy. So I'm working with some buyers tomorrow, taking them to a few properties to have a look. They're out of Auckland. But when I look at the numbers, when I look at what opportunities they've got in central Auckland or a little bit in the fringes, and you go, wow, a couple of years ago, you couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And so grab those opportunities. Yes, you can look at the interest rates, and yes, you can try to listen to the noises. Why would you listen to the noises? You've got to go back again to the why and what are you doing, what your goal is, and just chase those opportunities. They might not come back. And who knows what's going to happen next year.
And the thing with, I think, any type of investment, like whether it's property, shares, stocks, or anything, it's often when everyone's doing it that you're not going to benefit the same. Yeah. But you have to definitely think about your circumstances first. But that's always something that sits with me from an investment strategy perspective. It's like once everyone's doing it, you've missed the boat.
Yeah, and there's a wave, and then they're talking about buyer's market, not buyer's market. At the end of the day, you got to look at opportunities.
It's like in tech, you want to be an early
you want
adopter,
to be the early stage.
Whoever bought the first Bitcoin, that was high risk.
Multi-level, multi-level marketing. You don't want to be in the bottom of that pyramid. You want to be on the top. So just launched, great. Yeah, I'll start now. So I really resonate with what you said. You've got to. It's everything in life is about timing. One is timing for yourself, but also timing the market and what's going on around. So you've asked me, earlier about what I see. I think on one hand there was a lot of uncertainty. Yeah. And people were not comfortable. They were panicking. People started panicking, and that really influenced a lot of the market. Am I taking this house out to the market? Am I gonna lose? But you might lose a lot more next year. Wow. So you've got to look at, again, what's the next step for you in your life and why would you go to market? Yeah. And then a lot of people are feeling a little bit more comfortable, I think, because of what you just said. everyone's doing it. Suddenly there's a wave. Suddenly there's more houses coming. Suddenly, there's more buyers in the market. They know there are opportunities. They're looking for it, but they're also stalling sometimes. They think there's going to be another wave and more bargains.
It's like crystal ball.
But you can miss it. Yeah.
You can miss it. So to the other questions we were talking about before is how do you prepare, and what you do is really understand your needs, and not just look at the market. Look at your own personal needs and what you want to achieve right now.
And just one last thing that I'd like to cover up is like when you're in auction, I know I tried a couple of interesting things. Like I stood right next to the buyer who was sitting down, the old intimidation effect. And what other things have you seen in there? What kind of have you seen be effective in that?
I've seen people sitting and just not bidding at all until the really last minute. That's a really common strategy.
Yeah.
But you also, again, need to remember, what do you want out of it, and what is the top dollar you're happy to pay on top of what you plan. So there's a few layers to it, and then come really strong at the end.
I think if I was to take my time again, that's what I would do. Reason being, you can sort of sit back, stick with your values,
watch the room and the dynamic.
Take your time, and then from a place of, yes, I do want to enter at this price level, which is now a high one because you're kind of waiting till it teeters off. You kind of can come in and feel like you haven't been carried away. So I think that's a really valid strategy to consider. But yeah, again, I guess you just have to you got to
feel it. So you go into an auction room, there might be just one person. It's happening at the moment. The percentage of success has fluctuated a lot, up and down, to 50% to 30%, etc. So you go to an auction room, you actually don't know what to expect because you're not getting that information in advance, right? You kind of know, but you don't. And so again, open-minded, have a little bit of a strategy, but again, what's your top dollar? What is the market value? So you've got to be realistic as well. A lot of auctions, if they do not pass in the auction room at the moment, they do close outside the auction room. It's a really important fact to add because people think it's only going to happen in the auction room, but there is negotiation after the auction. And if someone came to an auction as a seller, as a vendor, they do most of the time want to close the deal. So then you come in with the rest of your guns and the rest of your ideas and really what you want to achieve, and you might succeed. You don't want to come again with, I've got to win, I'm being stubborn, this is what I wanted. It's business.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be in a mindset of losing scarcity, and just go, oh, I didn't pay that and now I feel great. No, you're not going to feel great because you didn't get that property that you really wanted and paid maybe a couple of thousands to even get there to the auction room and do all your due diligence.
So get close to your values and then enter something that
and feel the dynamic with. So again, it goes back to people. You're sitting in an auction room. If there's a lot of people, there's a lot of dynamic. You go, who's that person? Who's that person? Who's bidding for who on the phone? It's in the good old days. You've had lines of people. You couldn't read the whole room. Now you can kind of read. The numbers have
got that
gone down a bit. So
got that space.
But you need to feel dynamic.
Yeah.
You need to feel the auctioneer. You can look at an auctioneer. You can. If you do it a lot, you actually start looking at people's body language. And, the sellers, the vendors, if someone's there or someone representing a buyer, what is their body language? Where are they going? But go back to you. Go back to you because you are the person that wants to buy that property.
Awesome.
So
Well, thank
Go
you.
back to your whys, you know.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been such an
thanks,
interesting conversation, and thank you for sharing a little bit about your personal story, because that's kind of where we first bonded and how we
motherhood.
met, so,
you know, I mean, you want to teach, I guess, the next generation as well how to deal with it. I think we don't get taught that at school, how to buy property and how to make money and how to scale on business. And I think if we can give that knowledge, I think what you're doing is fantastic, because you're also educating the young generation. I admire that. I think it's amazing, and being more progressed about it and giving tools to people and getting that fear out of them,
building that confidence
about property, and understanding the value in property and what it really is. And I'm really honored to be here today.
Thank you for joining our community. Buying property isn't easy, but listening in will get you one step closer on your journey. Please leave an Apple or Spotify review and provide feedback so we can improve your experience. Join our Facebook group, A Safe Space to Learn Together, or follow us on Instagram at @SliceToBuy. If you have any questions or topics you would like us to touch on, you can email us at hello@slicetobuy.com. A quick reminder, Slice the podcast does not provide personalised investment advice. We are not acting as financial advisors or taking into account your circumstances. To get personalised advice, join us at slicetobuy.com and engage with our partners who can act as your financial advisor or lawyer and support you with your specific needs.